Would you like to know how to overcome a major obstacle that's preventing you from getting acceptance of your recommendations for the care that you know would help your patients achieve best possible health? That's exactly what we're going to be talking about in today's broadcast from Planet Gems. It's about a false belief. It's the myth or false belief that my patients can't afford that. I hear it every day. The other night, the topic of one of our Freedom Summit coaching members' masterminds was busting our own false beliefs or emptying our mind trash. So what is a false belief anyway? Well, it's a misconception that results from incorrect reasoning. It's a fallacy. So why are they so hard to overcome? That's really simple. False beliefs are really hard to overcome because we believe them. We believe them to be true. Well, during our 90-minute mastermind last Wednesday night, we dove deep into at least a half dozen different false beliefs, things that are preventing us from moving forward, building our practices better, doing better care for our patients. These beliefs cost our patients health, and they cost us in the practice. So they're hurting all of us. We went over proof or evidence that they were all false. Many dentists tell me, well, my patients can't afford and they won't pay for much of anything beyond what insurance covers. I get it. I know they ask and they say that all the time. Do you take my insurance? Does my insurance cover that? I get it. Well, the simple truth is they'll never tell you the simple truth that they never tell you when they say, I can't afford the care, or they say, you know what, I'm going to have to wait until next year because, Bob just lost a couple hours at work, or whatever reasons they give you. In most instances, the money isn't the issue. When they say it's the money, it's usually that they don't really believe that they need the care. Obviously, if somebody's got a tooth that's fractured in half, it's bleeding from the pulp, it hurts, they know they need care. But 95% of the dentistry that you and I do as general dentists every day, there's no symptoms. And so when you look at a patient and you tell them about needing $4,000 worth of dentistry in the upper right, they look at you and they say, Doc, do you need a new Mercedes, or are you putting a new wing on the office with my mouth? And even if they don't say that, they're thinking it. The truth is, pretty much everything that they tell you is not the truth. Fact is, in most cases, they either don't believe that they need it, or you did a good job of explaining what they need and they believe that they need it, but there was no sense of urgency created. So when a patient kind of believes or even does 100% believe that they need this care that they have no symptoms for, if they don't perceive a sense of immediate need and urgency, and by the way, that's the right or downer. If they don't perceive an immediate need or urgency, they're not going to schedule. Now, I've got so many dentists over the years who've proven in areas where there was just no money and the patients had no money, and a lot of dentists in their area, maybe even these dentists who we're working with, felt that their patients just couldn't afford the care. A good example would be Dr. Ginger Bratzel in Socorro, New Mexico. When I first spoke with her on the phone, she said, I'm thinking of closing the practice and just moving to a better area because the people don't have any money here. So I asked her about it. Would you rather try to stay there and make it work, or would you just as soon close and move to a better area? She said, well, in Socorro, New Mexico, she said, the Indian population that I'm serving, she says, these are the people I live with and I've grown up with, and I'd like to stay there, and I love the people and I love the area. I don't want to leave. And so I said to Ginger, let's give it a shot. Well, Ginger did phenomenally well. She rebuilt that practice to a thriving practice, and many, many, many years later, she sold the practice. And what was kind of funny about that sale is that her husband was the hygienist, and so when Ginger sold the practice, she didn't actually sell her husband, but the husband went with the practice. Anyway, she proved in Socorro, New Mexico that what she thought couldn't be done could be done really well. Another example is Dr. Jim Ryerson in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. When I first started working in Freedom Summit coaching with Jim Ryerson, his lead hygienist, and they had a big practice with 3 full-time hygienists, and his lead hygienist, Amy, says to me, Dr. Orent, she says, I know that the patients need fluoride. Our patients desperately need the fluoride. She said, but truth be told, they don't have any money in Muscle Shoals. She said, our patients just don't have any money. And she said, honestly, if they did have any money, I don't think they'd spend it on their teeth. Anyway, the result was in less than a year with us, they increased hygiene, 3 hygienists full-time, over $210,000. A big part of that was fluoride. The rest of it was periodontal care that was being accepted now that wasn't accepted before. So just in hygiene, they went up $210,000 in less than a year. There's another example of my own hands-on example. When my dad was, he was not a dentist, but he was a businessman, owner of a dental practice in Worcester, Mass. My practice was in Framingham, his practice in Worcester, about 45 minutes to the west of mine, and all to the west of Boston. Well, Worcester is a little bit less socioeconomically advantaged area, and his general dentists, and their team all pretty much believed that they couldn't do the kind of care that I did in Framingham. Now, Framingham is no upscale area. If you're familiar at all with the Boston area, there's Wellesley and Weston and Sudbury and the Wayland and some beautiful upscale areas not too far from us. But we are a suburb that's more blue collar. It's a nice area, but I love the area, but it's more blue collar. A lot of teachers and people who work in the Golden Mile and so forth. Anyway, out in Worcester, my dad had a couple of his GPs who had been sick for quite some time, and he asked me if I could come out and give him a day. And so I rearranged my schedule. I started going out there one day a week. And on the very first day I was there in the morning, one of the assistants said to me, "Oh, your dad told us all about the type of dentistry you do in Framingham," which was, complete dentistry and so forth. And I thought she was giving me a compliment. Well, she wasn't. In the next breath, she says to me, "That won't work here." And then she explained to me why their patients would never accept it. On the very first day I was out there, I met a young man. This was a re-examination I did, probably in mid-30s, maybe early to mid-30s. And he was working at one of the local factories. He had the union insurance. And he was pretty much typical of the type of patient she described, with one exception. It was the team member and doctor attitude and not the patient attitude that was preventing the patients from getting the care that they needed. On the very first day out there, I presented and got scheduled one quadrant of prosthetic dentistry. And he said to me, "Dr. Orent," he said, "nobody ever told me it could even be done that way." That was the first thing he said to me when I presented it. That was not an anomaly. I was out there for actually several weeks doing one day at a time. And it was not unusual for me to get that kind of dentistry accepted there in an area where they told me it couldn't be done. Ask your team. Here's a question for your team members. And if you're a team member, ask the rest of your team and maybe even ask your doctor. Ask your team or your doctor if they all believe that a significant percentage of your patients, let's say a quadrant of dentistry is $4,000. I'm just picking a number, but let's say a quadrant of prosthetic dentistry is $4,000. Ask your team and our doctor that they believe that a significant percentage of your patients couldn't afford that type of care, even if you financed it through one of the third-party financing companies. And you'll find that in many offices, not all, but in many offices, a number of team members and or doctors do believe that there's some significant percentage of your patients who simply couldn't afford that kind of care, even if it were financed and even if they were accepted for financing third-party. The truth is, 95 to 98% of your patients in your general practice could afford that level of care if it were financed. And here's how I know. That level of financing costs somewhere, if you take $4,000 over a 60-month period, it's somewhere around $85, $90, maybe a little bit less or more, depending on the interest rate. So $80 or $90 per month. The average American family has 3 cell phones, including these little kids now, 8 and 10 years old with their own cell phone. So the average American family has 3 cell phones, and they either have cable or satellite TV because they're not using rabbit ears, I guarantee you. And the average family is spending between $450 and $500 a month on the cell phones and the cable or satellite TV and the Hulu or Netflix or Amazon Prime or all the other stuff that goes with the TVs and the phones. So if they're spending $400 or $500 a month on that stuff, and I'm glad they have that money. They're also going to Disney and they're going out to eat at restaurants occasionally. All right, you get the point. So share this with your team. We never talk about it with this we never bring that up to the patients. This is more of something we talk with the team. If you'd like to reduce your dependence on PPOs, really cut it back, even a third or more in the next 24 months, and increase your collections by at least $250,000 a year, get more of your best dentistry, more complete, the dentistry that you know in your heart and your mind is best for your patients, get more of that accepted. If you want to get off of the hamster wheel, the struggle of what I call the PPO prison, you want to get off that hamster wheel and slow down and really enjoy dentistry and enjoy your patients and have more fun and make a lot more money. My team and I have set aside some time to speak with you personally. We call it a breakthrough strategy session. They're complimentary. It's 1 hour, and we're happy to do that over the next few days. Who should these calls or who are these calls for? Well, you have to be a general dentist. You must be the owner of your practice. So if you're a general dentist and the owner of the practice, schedule your complimentary breakthrough strategy session using the link. There's a link below the video, and you can use that link, or you could just go to freedomsummitcoaching.com. So to schedule your free 60-minute breakthrough strategy session, again, you can use the link below, or you can go to freedomsummitcoaching.com. I will guarantee you it will be the best 60 minutes you have ever spent working on your practice. So if you're sick and tired of the struggle, you want to get really back into the passion and loving dentistry again, and it's not just the money or the better dentistry. It's really creating a first-class lifestyle for your family, so your patients are getting the best possible care, your team is having more fun and more joy from the practice, and you will build a lifestyle for your family. Use the link below the video or go to freedomsummitcoaching.com. And remember, you're only one gem away. Take care, guys. Have a great night.